Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to Sunday Live. How are we all doing in chat? It feels like forever. I think we streamed on Tuesday, actually, so probably not quite forever. Great start, Sean. But it does feel like a long time since I talked to you all. Anyway, we've got loads to get through tonight. We are going to be talking 2019 teammate battles. Yes. Now, I'm fully aware that another Formula 1 channel did go out and do a teammate battle video yesterday, but I didn't realise that it fell in my recommended feed today, so I've apologised to them on Twitter and I'll apologise to them again now. A bit of a dumb moment from me, but yes, loads to get through tonight. 10 teams. We'll also take a load of your questions at the end. I'll come to you throughout for your predictions for this season in terms of the teammate battles. It will be races that we'll be talking about, probably qualifying as well, but I'm just going to hop pretty much straight into this one because, like I say, loads to get through, and hopefully everything goes perfectly tonight, unlike on Tuesday. And we're going to start by saying a very good evening for the first time in what feels like forever to Jonty. Good evening, Jonty.
Good evening, Sean, and good evening, everyone. Is this the first time in 2019? Or did we do one not long after New Year?
I think we did one just after New Year.
Yeah, the second one, but it feels like longer.
It does, doesn't it? It feels like forever, but it's a pleasure to have you on again, mate. You're looking forward to this. It could be quite a juicy topic.
Well, I can feel there's going to be a little bit of banter involved on one of the topics.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also going to welcome back and say hello to a man who believes that Birmingham is on the border between England and Wales. Good evening, Stuart.
Hello. Yeah, I didn't get my success through UK geography. Good to talk to you, though. Hi.
Yeah, I'd say it's been forever, but I spoke to you last weekend, so it's all good. Do you enjoy Autosport? I should ask you that one really first.
I did. It's weird to hear you without seeing your face. Yeah, it was quite full on, wasn't it? I'm saying if anyone hasn't been to Autosport and wants to go, be prepared for just how enormous it is. So come with a plan, I'd say.
Yeah, it's blisters. Blisters is the word I'm going to go with there. So a couple of people in chat just saying that Stuart's quiet. Don't worry, it was my fault, my end. I didn't turn him up, so I've sorted that one out now. We're going to jump straight into it, and we're going to start with... I wasn't sure what order to do these in, really, but I thought I'd go with the two most boring teams, really, who chose not to change their lineups for 2019. We're going to kick it off with the world champions Mercedes. By the way, check out my sexy slides. They are brilliant. Very, very good, Sean. Spent minutes on them. Hamilton versus Bottas. To be honest, Jonty, this is quite an easy one for me. Unless Hamilton has a cataclysmic 2019, I cannot see this going any other way than in the Brits' favour.
Oh, no, absolutely. Hamilton would have to have reliability worse than Max and Danny Rick combined for the last 2 years to lose this.
Yeah, definitely. I like Valtteri. I really do. People may say different, but I do quite like him. We know he's a good driver from his time at Williams. There's no denying that. I just don't think he's... I don't know. There's not many drivers you could put in that seat alongside Lewis, to be fair, is there, Stuart, that would be able to really take him on. I expect Bottas to be closer, by the way. I will say that. I do think Bottas will be closer in 2019 than he was last year, but unless you see a surprise, mate, Hamilton all the way.
I mean, yeah, you kind of have to assume Hamilton all the way, and even though I've already predicted in other corners of the internet that Bottas will find himself searching desperately for a seat next year, I do want to kind of look at things from an optimistic angle in that if, as I've said before, I think Valtteri is that kind of guy that if he can get all his ducks in a row, and it's very much that kind of if, as kind of Nico Rosberg-y kind of fortune goes his way, he could challenge Hamilton somewhat, but I think, he needs luck to swing his way and away from Hamilton to make that happen. But he's got something in him if he can just make it stick for 21 races in a row.
He's a good driver. He is a good driver. I know we give him a lot of stick, but yeah, I don't know. I can't see it happening. I'm rooting for him. Last year, qualifying battle lost 15-6 and was nearly 2 tenths down. So it's a big turnaround. A lot of pressure on him as well, isn't there, Stuart? I mean, if he doesn't nail this year, there's a couple of drivers, definitely Ocon, possibly Russell if he has a good year breathing down his neck. So pressure's on from Australia. He really needs to deliver.
Yeah, it's not very pleasant for him knowing that there are those drivers lining up behind him. Toto Wolff has made it very clear that he really, really wants Ocon to get into a seat, but probably that second Mercedes seat. And with his sponsor also dropping him quite publicly and quite rudely, I think, it's not the best mindset to start the year in. So Valtteri really needs to sort of get himself squared off and think, what do I need to do to prove myself?
What do you think Bottas has got to do this year, Jonty, if he wants to keep that seat? I know we're wandering off topic a little bit, but just while we're here.
Well, I totally agree with Stuart. I mean, he's under a lot of pressure and he really hasn't been treated very well. Certainly by his personal sponsor and by a lot of media. I know we've been very critical, with good reason in some areas, but not all of them. Maybe we have been a little bit harsh. If he can turn things around after all that, then he's going to be looking very good and he's going to deserve to keep it.
Yeah, it's a big ask, but I'm going to go for Lewis. I think we're all pretty much agreed on that. If you disagree in chat, do let me know. By the way, any issues with the levels, we're just working on now behind the scenes. Multitasking. Yes, multitasking. Haas. This is harder than I thought it was going to be, Jonty. I think I said that to you pre-stream when we were sorting out your levels earlier. You'd be partially inclined to lead towards K-Mag. By the way, they are called K-Mag and Rogro this year. That is that. I'm not calling them anything else. So you'd be tempted to lean towards K-Mag because of the points difference last year. But when you look at the season as a whole, first half Magnussen pretty much dominated Grosjean. Second half of the year, Grosjean pretty much did dominate Magnussen. So I'm kind of looking at it now and thinking, I'm not really sure which way this is going to go, but what I will say is I think this is possibly the last chance for those two as teammates. I think both of them need to string a consistent full season together. They might retain one of them, but I think both of them are under a little bit of pressure despite how good they were last year.
Well, you've got to say Rogro is the one under the most pressure. You know, with everything that Gene Haas has been saying with the loyalty, because he's stuck by them. That only goes so far. And he was the one who made the bigger mistakes last year. You know, K-Mag didn't perform all the way through. But when he was off the pace, he was just off the pace. He wasn't doing catastrophic things costing them points.
No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Who would you back if you had to pick between these two for this teammate battle? Which way are you going to go?
K-Mag.
It's not just me, is it? It's tough, isn't it? It's quite a tricky one to call.
It is tough, and I'm not just saying K-Mag to have a dig at Dan. I do think he's going to come out better because Grosjean doesn't do that well under pressure. And he's got even more of it on him this year.
It's a good point. What do you reckon then, Stuart? It is tough, but I think I'm going to pick Rogro. I think Rogro. Somebody pointed out it sounded like a type of compost, but yeah, I think Grosjean's going to do all right this year, and I'm going to back him over K-Mag.
It is surprisingly tough, and I'm definitely agree with Jonty when he says Rogro doesn't do well under pressure, and we've seen him fall apart, including that long string of pointless finishes at the beginning of the year, which weren't entirely his fault. While Kevin Magnussen does have that problem where when his pace disappears, there's just a kind of shrugging. It's like, I don't know where my pace is, which is more worrisome than kind of having an understanding of where the problems are and being able to develop them. I'm kind of going to back Rogro, partly because I like him better as a person, but also because I think the potential is in him. If he can cut out the mistakes, the potential is in him to string together some good performances. Whereas Kevin Magnussen, when he's off the boil, he doesn't seem to understand where that comes from.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Last season, for anybody that's interested, 11-8 in favour of Grosjean in qualifying, and there was 2.5 tenths between them in favour of Grosjean. That's surprising, actually. I don't know how much of that is second half of the year, but a little bit unlucky first half of last year, I think, Grosjean, but also was an absolute moron at times. Sorry, Dan. It's the only way I can put it, mate, but he really was absolutely terrible. I think I was going to leave these towards the end just because I like to build things up, but why not? We'll go from now. Red Bull. If you dig about on the internet and go into most of my comment sections, Pierre Gasly's going to get his backside handed to him, apparently, by Max Verstappen. I'm not convinced, Stuart. I think, although I fully expect Max Verstappen will come out on top come the end of the season, I think Pierre's going to give him a good run for his money.
Pierre Gasly's a really hard driver to kind of read against Max Verstappen. I guess that's, we've just come off two teams that are keeping their lineup, and now you've got two drivers that, haven't really been in any relatable machinery. I don't think Pierre Gasly is going to be embarrassed by what happens this year, while I do think points-wise he will be behind. If that Red Bull is at least as strong as it is this year, I wouldn't be surprised if he managed to get himself a win, but I think it would be more one of those wins that comes from good fortune than sort of dominating a race or like making some serious overtakes. I definitely see Gasly putting in a strong year, but not managing to overcome Verstappen.
What about you, Jonty?
The thing with Gasly that we didn't really get to see last year, but we did see when he was in GP2, is that he works really well when he's got a top-notch team to help with getting the setup right. If he can't get that setup bang on, then he will struggle with the car. So he's got a lot more chance of getting that behind him with Red Bull than he did at Toro Rosso. And I think that's going to favour him quite well. And he will push Max. I do think he's going to push him, but I think Max will have something in a contract somewhere, meaning that he gets first choice on any calls.
Red G making a very good point in chat. Gasly has Honda experience. He's got a year with Honda under his belt, Jonty. So I don't know how much that's going to help out early doors, because I'd imagine Max Verstappen spent a hell of a lot of time learning that engine as best he can in a simulator, but it's a fair point. He knows what it's like to start down the back of the grid and have to make his way back through after a penalty, as Max Verstappen does, of course. But I'm looking forward to this one. It's one of the really tasty ones that I'm really looking forward to watching, but I'd have to lean towards Max. But I don't think he's going to get destroyed. I don't think Gasly will get destroyed, but maybe 4 or 5 races to get up to speed, do you reckon, Jonty, for Gasly? Or do you think he'll hop in Australia and pretty much be on the pace he needs to be?
No, I think he'll be pretty much on pace very, very quickly. Just look at 2018, Bahrain, second race.
A good point. What do you reckon, Stuart? Do you think he'll take a while to get up to speed?
Well, hearing Jonty talk just gave me pause for thought. And they're not massively old as a team. They're 12 years or so. But historically, you'd say Red Bull, really great if you've got that raw talent who's fast out of the gate. The Max Verstappens, your Vettels, Ricciardo as well. They can provide machinery and support to get them, winning races, getting podiums. Drivers that maybe need a bit more support and development, that the speed is there. But especially compared to a fast teammate, they look like they're lacking. They've been not so great at developing those drivers. Kvyat particularly comes to mind. So I think Gasly needs to show speed pretty early on to avoid risking falling into that Red Bull pit of despair that so many other drivers have.
I was just going to say that they don't give them time, do they? They don't get the time they need. Unless they are Max Verstappen. He seems to get quite a few chances, but I can understand because he's an incredible driver. But in terms of last season, both of them pretty much destroyed their teammates in qualifying. Max Verstappen beat Ricciardo 15-5, which was a huge surprise when I did my stat roundup at the end of last year. And Gasly beat Hartley 13-6. So it's quite an interesting one to look out for this. I am going to go with Max on that one. Next up, though, it's Sauber. Kimi and Giovinazzi. I think this is quite an interesting lineup. Great for Gio that he's got a very experienced world champion teammate to learn from. But I feel awful saying this, but I think he's going to get absolutely destroyed by Kimi Räikkönen. Nothing against Gio. He's a rookie, effectively. He's had a couple of races, hasn't he, Jonty? But he's still a rookie, and Kimi Räikkönen's got 307 years' worth of F1 experience. So it's got to be Kimi that takes this, surely.
Oh, yeah, by a mile. The other point you got to think, certainly 2017, 2018, Kim improved. The qualifying is one of his strengths, with the possible exception of the last sector of his last run in Q3. But so that means that Gio's always going to be fighting from behind. He's always going to be starting a few places back from Kimi. So that's going to give him difficulties as the lights go. So yeah, I have to agree. I think Kimi's going to absolutely demolish him. 19-2, maybe even worse.
And we've been quite open about our, not criticism of Giovinazzi, but sort of not not really rating him as highly as some do. But I think from what we saw in FP1 last year, he's clearly picked up speed. I know the Sauber's better than it was when he was testing before with them, but he looks better from what we've seen. So I think Gio will do well, but I just don't think he's going to get anywhere near Kimi Räikkönen. If he'd been up against another rookie teammate, I think, yeah, he'd easily be able to fight his corner, but Kimi's got so much experience and so much speed, and as Jonty was saying there, Stuart, you know, his qualifying has been spot on. He won his form in 2018, I think, was the best he's been in years, and that should roll on quite nicely into 2019 for him, especially if he's nice and settled at a team that he knows very well.
Yes, quite. And I think any of us would be fools to bet our money on Gio over Kimi. However, I guess the question, well, there's a couple of questions. One is like, how big will the difference be? And part will become on, how much has since playing around in F1. And also, it's an interesting side by side because Kimi is on his way out. He's the oldest driver. He's been here for, as you said, 307 years. Good stat. We're kind of looking at these last two contract years being his last years in F1, whereas Gio is hungry and on the rise. And where do those two success curves cross over? I think in Gio's mind, he's going to be aiming to be pegging Kimi by the end of the year. Bad choice of language, sorry, but to be level with Kimi by the end of the year. I think that's what he would be hoping to do, to try and start matching the old, tired Kimi Räikkönen, as I'm sure he would thinking of him in his head.
As people are pointing out in chat, though, Gio's 25. That always surprises me because we're talking about him as a rookie and this young up-and-coming driver that's going to be, the next big thing. Could he end up at Ferrari alongside Charles Leclerc if Vettel doesn't cut it long-term? And you think, he's 25. Can we really call him a young, up-and-coming driver? Or am I being too harsh there, Jonty, do you think?
No, I don't think so, because he's got so much up against him. It's going to be a massive test, and the way he's carried himself and the way he's done things over the last couple of years, it's certainly going to work in his favour. He's really shown sort of some mental stability and has kept his cool instead of getting angry.
Lucas says, 25 isn't so old. It isn't old. I can assure you 25 is not old. But in Formula One, in sporting terms, I don't think you can really class him as a young driver, but I think he'll be okay. I think he'll do okay, but he's got one hell of a teammate to beat, so I'm going to go with Kimi on that one. I think we're kind of agreed. I'm sure chat will let us know. Next one, Williams, Kubica and Russell. Another one that if you dig deep enough on the internet, Stuart, everyone thinks that Kubica is going to absolutely wipe the floor with George Russell. I'm not convinced. I think this is going to be very, very close indeed. I mean, Robert himself said in an interview last week, I covered it in the video yesterday on the channel, that he feels more like a rookie than a race-winning veteran because he's been away from the sport for 8 years. So in a way, I know not officially or technically or whatever, but it just sort of feels like two rookies in that team in some ways. And I think this is going to be a lot closer than people are predicting.
I think watching them next year is going to be absolutely fascinating. It's going to be very, very tricky to call. Robert Kubica is obviously very, very strong. Classically, the drivers who raced with him through the junior formula, like Lewis Hamilton, have always rated him very, very highly. But of course, as you say, he's not only been away for a long time, and the nature of the cars have changed through at least two quite significant rule changes since he was last in the sport, but he does also have that disability to carry on with him, which has a little bit of a question mark over how much that will affect his speed. Against George Russell, who is, fresh on the scene, but very, very strong through the junior form, like blitzed through Formula 2, ended up in the weakest team, but against Kubica, who probably could help develop him. It's going to be really fascinating to see. I actually, if I had to put my money on it, I might put it on Russell.
Yeah, Jonty?
I don't really want to call this one. It's going to be super close. And I do think Russell's definitely got a chance of doing it. It's just a case of how they're organising things within the team, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people in chat talking about George Russell having more experience with sort of the modern day Formula One. I know Formula 2 is not Formula 1, but it's closer to than what Robert Kubica has raced over the last few years. But he has got a year at Williams as test driver, so he's done a lot of work behind the scenes. So it's not going to be a complete surprise for him when he gets in that car come Australia. But I really can't call this. I think all three of us are struggling. I think chat is struggling as well. A few saying they don't even want to call it, just like Jonty said there. I don't think there'll be anything in this. We might see a situation where Kubica comes out fighting in Australia and is quicker to start with, but I think as Russell settles in, he's just going to get quicker and quicker. And we saw last year in Formula 2, and we're going to talk about Formula 2 a bit more in a bit because of Alex Albon, but George Russell in Formula 2 last year in what was, for me, one of the most competitive fields we've seen in that category for a long time was absolutely fantastic. And I wouldn't say he reminded me of Leclerc, but the way he dominated it. I don't think he is as a driver. I still think Leclerc probably is quicker than he is, but he kind of reminded me sort of on that level in a way. So I think this is going to be really good. A bit like Stuart, if I was putting money on it, I'd put it on Russell because he's probably seen as the underdog with a lot of people. But I think this is just far too close to call, to be honest. Are we agreed on that, do you reckon, Jonty?
I was actually just going to mention Leclerc like you did, because Russell's kind of gone the same path. He thrives when he's stepping up a level and has got just enough pressure on him to make it challenging. He did it when he stepped up to GP3, F2. Now he's coming up to F1. I think he's got the abilities. It's just a case of whether it's going to be overwhelming against someone who has got experience.
I'll tell you what, whatever you think about Formula One this season in terms of teammate battles is going to be fascinating. It's going to be one of the best we've had. But next up is Sergio Perez, Checo, and Lance Stroll. I don't know why, but Sergio Perez in that picture looks a bit like Karen from Finance. But I don't know where that's come from. Random moment. But I've said it a million times on this channel, Stuart. I think Stroll is going to give Checo more of a run for his money than people are going to think. I know that the chat are just going to go, Perez, Stroll's a useless pay driver. He's not. He's not brilliant. He's not fantastic, but he can be a solid midfield driver. I think this will be closer than people make out, but I'd probably go Checo.
Putting money on it, I'd probably go Perez. I think he is the demonstrably stronger driver. On the other hand, there could be a lot to Lance. I don't, and I agree with you. I don't think Lance Stroll is the pay driver making up places on the grid. I don't think he's to that extent. And as I believe I've said before, I think Stroll's abilities are masked somewhat by that Williams, particularly last year's Williams, which was very, very difficult to drive, wasn't being developed very well, and was incomparable to a lot of the cars around him. So with a stronger team, better people supporting and developing, it could be interesting to see what comes out of Stroll this year, I think. And actually what's more interesting is how much pressure he feels, because as we said before, if his dad owns the team, what's pushing him to fight for his seat, which works for a lot of drivers. So yeah, I think Perez will be the stronger driver, but I'm interested to see how Stroll develops over the year and how much of a fight he can put up to Checo.
Yeah, a few people sort of referencing in chat about it being his dad's team. So what are we going to see there? But one thing is for sure, Jonty, is Sergio, as I said in the video yesterday, can't be spending any time crashing into Lance Stroll because he won't be in that seat very long if he does.
Yeah, that's probably true. One thing is for certain, you mentioning that Checo looks like whoever from Finance. Stroll looks like Wreck-It Ralph in that picture.
He does.
Nah, I'm just going to say Stroll to annoy the chat, to be quite honest. But I do think he's going to surprise everyone. It will be a lot closer than they think. Perez probably is going to take it, but he's not going to be destroyed.
Biggest problem Stroll's got is his qualifying. He's not a great qualifier, and to be fair to him, he's said that in plenty of interviews, and so of Racing Force Point India, Stroll Racing Canada, they've pretty much said the same, that he needs to work on his qualifying. So that could be costly because Checo can qualify and he will race hard if he's allowed to do that with Lance, which I think he will be. I can't see there being team orders like we've seen in the past in lower formula with Lance Stroll. I don't expect them to do that because I don't think they get away with that with the fan base the way it is and whatnot. But it's going to be close. I think he needs to work on his qualifying, but I'd have to give it to Perez, just if nothing else, to be honest, because of that experience. It's another one. I'm going to say this about most of these. I'm really looking forward to this one, Stuart. I think this is going to get very tasty, either controversially or just in terms of the racing.
I definitely hope so. I think it would be awfully embarrassing if Stroll was left for dust all year long, for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I'm definitely. I like Stroll. I definitely like to see him do well, and I think it's within him.
Renault. One of the lineups I cannot wait for: the Hulk versus the Honey Badger. That'd make a great TV show. Yeah. Anyway, just imagining things there, but it's so difficult to call this one. I've been going over this all day, Jonty, back and forth on it. Part of me thinks Daniel Ricciardo, we know how good he is, and we saw what he could do at Red Bull, and I reckon a new team, fresh setting, put all of that last year behind him, he could absolutely go out there and smash this season. Not smash Hulkenberg, but smash this season. The problem we've got is Hulkenberg is bloody good. He's absolutely fantastic. Should have already had podiums, but obviously it's not gone his way for whatever reason and he's missed out. But I can't call it, mate. I can't call it.
I think this is going to be a fight of two sides, because I think the fact is the Hulk's a better qualifier, Ricciardo's a better racer, and that's going to balance them out and make it a very, very close fight.
He's so consistent, isn't he? Nico Hulkenberg as well. Who just said that in chat? Logan Martin just said Hulk smash. I like that. And Eric's done the same. What do you reckon, Stuart? Your first thoughts on this one? Is this just going to be one of those that we're going to have to make a prediction on come Brazil because it is going to be so close?
Well, as you know, I'm a Ricciardo fan, not quite to the simpering extent that Dan is about Grosjean, but it is going to be very tricky. I've always wanted to see what Hulkenberg would be like in top-notch machinery, but I guess if we bring a top-notch driver into his team, that's the equivalent. I would back Ricciardo for this, especially due to his racecraft, which I think is going to be especially important if the midfield are as tight as they were last year. And I do think, Renault are going to continue to get stronger and bolster their place. Probably be fourth again next year, I think. But, we are long overdue Nico Hulkenberg stringing everything together and showing us what he's made of. And if that Renault's good, and if that slightly off topic, if this Renault's good and the Red Bull is slightly weakened by its engine, then there could be a lot on offer for both of these drivers, so they're going to have a lot to be very, very hungry for. But Ricciardo's my guy just because he has more demonstrable experience at succeeding.
Which way are you going to go, Jonty?
I'm going to go Hulk, just because I have this horrible feeling that Ricciardo's luck is just never going to change. That's not saying I don't want that to happen. I've just got this really horrible feeling that he's going to get to Renault and the engine's just going to keep letting out on him again. I don't know why.
I fully expect these two to be at worst 7th and 8th in the championship. It is going to be so close. But if I was putting money on it today, I love Hulkenberg, and I hate to do this, but I would have to put the money on Ricciardo. But we're not talking 10, 15, 20 points. I really do think we're talking 2 or 3. Somebody made a great point in chat, actually, which I'm just going to go and find. DJA Red Raven says, here's my call. Hulkenberg more points, but Ricciardo the more flashy highlights of the season. That could well happen, to be fair, Jonty. It's very... Hulkenberg's Mr. Consistent and can get those points, and Daniel Ricciardo loves a dive bomb, so that could well happen.
Yeah, that certainly could happen. And 2018 would certainly suggest that. You got Ricciardo taking over Take of the Year, but Hulk won Formula 1.5 with the most retirements.
Yeah, did he have 7 retirements?
It was something ridiculous.
I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 retirements and still finish there. Well, clear of Checo had 2 retirements and a podium. That needs to be pointed out. Yeah, it's going to be so close, but I'm going to make your life even easier now. I'm going to go to Ferrari. Another tough one to call in many ways. I fully expect Sebastian Vettel to come out on top in this one, but Charles Leclerc is going to give him such a run for his money, and it is going to be a lot closer than some predict. Obviously, you've got people who really don't like Vettel saying, oh, Leclerc's going to come in and destroy him. No, he's not. No, he's not. He'll do well. It might take him a couple of races to get up to pace. I know Jonty reckons he'll have pole in Australia and it'll be a big crash in turn 1, which I think we'd quite fancy for a post-race stream. I think that'll be a nice, tasty one. But I think Vettel for the edge on this one. But Leclerc's going to do enough to cement his long-term position at Ferrari, Jonty.
Again, I firmly believe this one will be settled in Australia. If Vettel wins in Australia, then it'll just be fine and normal business for Ferrari as they do through the year. If Leclerc beats Vettel in Australia, Vettel will crack and he will not be anywhere. I would go so far as to even say he probably wouldn't even see out the season. There's that much pressure on Vettel.
Forget teammate battle, Stuart. What do you reckon to that one? A Jonty prediction?
Yeah, I can't say I necessarily agree, but that is a very interesting setup. No, I think that, well, okay, teammate wise, and for some reason I feel quite strongly about this, and I feel a bit nervous saying this out loud because the last thing I said out loud was 12 months ago that there was no chance in hell Haas would beat Williams, and so bearing that in mind, I'm gonna go. I really think Leclerc can do this. I really do. I have been flabbergasted by Vettel the last couple of years in terms of his inability to be the Vettel we know, and showing mental weakness and falling apart when his strength is needed the most, whereas Leclerc is very much the man of the moment. I think, the next big driver, it's going to be him, Verstappen, and whoever else shows their ugly face. And I think if Leclerc gets traction early on, which I think he can, I really think he can show Vettel up, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens to Vettel after that.
I'm not comparing either driver to the 2 drivers we're going to talk about here, but do you think this has a potential to be another Alonso Hamilton 2007?
Potentially. I mean, the ingredients are quite similar, aren't they? You've got an established world champion and a young rookie, and a very emotional established world champion who kind of falls apart when his kind of throne is knocked over. So yeah, potentially.
Do you agree, Jonty? Do you think this has got everything we need for some controversy, some drama, as well as a lot of excitement?
Oh, absolutely. This making that link to 2007 really has got all the ingredients for it, and Vettel's also smart enough and rash enough at times to pull some of the same tricks that Alonso tried. We could see a lot of squabbling between them this year, and I genuinely think it's going to be settled very, very early, or at least it's going to become inflamed very, very early.
Viraf, thank you, says Sean a stat. Schumi won his 5th year with Ferrari and with a new teammate. We all know I like a stat and I like to look at these things. What I do know is we're about just over halfway through this, and what I want to do is go to bed and sleep until March. Seriously, this is getting me so pumped up for this coming season because there is just so much. I'm gonna stick with Vettel. As you'll all know, I correctly predict him as world champion for 2018 last January. That went really well. Oh dear. So I've probably just jinxed his entire season, poor Seb. But yeah, I'm going to back him. I think he'll just do it, but it's not going to be as a 4-time world champion, he's not going to wipe the floor with what is effectively a rookie at that team, only in his second season. It's going to be so close, but I think Vettel will just about edge it. Go on, Jonty.
No, I was going to say, that is a great stat, but if I'm remembering rightly, that new teammate was Irvine.
Barrichello.
Barrichello. Yeah, even then, not as much of a challenge.
Ooh, it's just, I can't wait. Next team, one that's interesting, but not. Maybe one side of the garage is quite exciting. Maybe I'm being harsh to Carlos there, but Sainz versus Norris. I don't know. Carlos wasn't brilliant in 2018. Got well beaten in the end, really, by Hülkenberg over the course of the year. Didn't deliver how I expected him to. But he's another one who, with a fresh setting, Stuart, might just give him that little spark again, rejuvenate his career, and he might just find that form again that we saw at Toro Rosso and as we saw in the junior formula. But Lando Norris, we've got to be so careful what we say because he's British, and Sky Sports are all over him at the minute. But I think he's going to be a big surprise this year. I don't think he's overrated, as a couple have just said in chat. As I'm going to say about another driver later in the week, I think he's overhyped, definitely, but he's got a lot of potential. I cannot and I will not pick which way this goes, to be honest, Stuart, because I just can't.
Again, we've got another very interesting one that's very, very hard to call. If we start with Sainz. Sainz, to me, like quite a few drivers who are on the grid now, is one of those drivers that's very much in danger of being one of those, he's just kind of there, sort of stuck in the midfield. You know, we're kind of used to him. He's a bit of becoming a part of the furniture rather than anyone we get too excited about. So it's around the time in his career where he really needs to make a big statement. And yeah, new team. Absolutely no idea how well that McLaren's going to do next year. So, you know, we can't speak to how far up the grid Iden will be. But he is now. He's the team leader. He's the experienced guy in the team, which he hasn't really had that role in the team before. So he's really going to need to step it up in that sense. Whereas Lando Norris comes with a lot of hype and some good results behind him. He's he's very tricky to call. When I see Lando Norris and I think about him in Formula One next year, and I don't know where this is coming from, but I have this kind of worry. I have this worry about him that he's just not going to be able to quite deliver on the hype that precedes him. And like we often see with Toro Rosso drivers, actually, I've just got this real concern about him, and I hope that being a very unstable McLaren is not going to be to his detriment.
April Kurtz in chat. If anyone's seen it, they'll get a spoiler alert for next week's video. I cover that in a video later in the week about being overhyped and who you were talking about there. But yeah, I share that concern for Lando. I think there's that much hype behind him. I said this about the Vettel video I did last week. The thing is, we live in the UK, so all we get is British media ramming these British drivers down our throat and slamming anyone that's not, basically. So it's difficult because I don't think we get the full story half the time. But I think great point about the unstable McLaren thing. I am concerned for Lando. He is a very good driver, but frankly, Jonty, and I said this when we were talking about driver lineups in the summer, I think he needed a second season in F2.
I do think he needed a second season in F2. I don't think he expected Russell to be quite as strong as he was, and I think that rattled him. Especially with the hype that he's got to try and deal with, as you've said. So I think Sainz is going to take this and quite a bit easier than a lot of people think. Sainz is going to be a lot more focused this year, because don't forget he's had a couple of years of being kind of in no man's land. You know, I'm still signed to this team, but I'm on loan to that team. Now, am I fully with this one, or am I still owned by them but driving for that? He's had no real focus and drive because of that. Now, it's all on his own terms, with his own contract for that team. He can really focus. And I think he's going to perform a lot better than people think.
Yeah, I want to see do a great point, though. Fantastic point. You know, he's been in a position where he's not had any stability, really, is the way to put it. As you were saying there, he's been from pillar to post. I think is the best way to put it, the poor guy. So hopefully he'll settle down and he'll be all right and he'll have a good season. But I think, as Stuart was saying, a lot rides on that McLaren and how good it's going to be. I'm not convinced. They've now started their annual, we should have a good car this year. So you can probably guarantee they won't. But that midfield is going to be so tight. And I think the development curve through 2019 is going to be so huge that it's only going to take a McLaren or a Williams or a Haas to just hit the sweet spot with a new front wing or a new something on the car to suddenly rocket towards the top end of that midfield. So it is going to be really close, but I don't really want to call it, and so I'm not going to. But what I will say is the last time we had a fairly experienced Spaniard and a young Brit coming into the McLaren lineup, it all went really, really well, Stuart, and there was no controversy whatsoever.
No, and I definitely hope it is as exciting as that year was. Oh, can you imagine, though? Can you imagine if McLaren with all their pool of resources nailed that front wing and got themselves back up the front, and then these two were head-to-head the whole year?
I think the thing is, if McLaren don't deliver a good car this year, and I suppose it's the same with any team if they don't deliver a good car, the only way we can really gauge Norris versus Sainz or how Russell gets on against Kubica is versus their teammate, isn't it? We can't say, oh yeah, okay, Norris had a good year, but he was destroyed by a Renault because his car was terrible, if you get what I'm saying. We can only really compare him to his teammate, and that's probably where we need to be looking. But there is one more team to cover. One Direction. Toro Rosso. Daniel Kvyat and Alex Albon. I love that picture. I'm quite looking forward to this one. I know I've said that about quite a few. I was doing this slide earlier today, and I'm not going to lie, Jonty, as I was putting it together, I actually got quite excited about this lineup, more so than I thought I would, which sounds a bit weird. But I genuinely am really looking forward to seeing what Daniel Kvyat can do. He's got a point to prove. And Alex Albon, everybody is banging on about how he's not good enough and he's not going to do this and he's not going to do that and, he's only there as a seat filler. But he did finish second in the F2 Championship, not a million miles away from the incredibly hyped George Russell and the incredibly hyped Lando Norris, who he was ahead of.
Yeah, that's true. And if you look back at the F2 season last year, there was something that happened with Albon that was very similar to Mick Schumacher in Formula 3. He just had one really good race and something seemed to click because he was markedly faster from that point on. Something clicked either in his head or with the car where he was just suddenly destroying his teammate by a long way. And his teammate is an experienced driver. So he's got a point to prove just as much as Kvyat has to prove his seat there, if you like.
Yeah, a couple of people in chat just saying that Albon finished third in the championship. I thought he took second. That's one to Google in a minute. I can't remember, but he was among the two drivers that are so massively hyped, definitely. But I'm looking forward to seeing him this year. I think he's going to be exciting. I know you're hoping to this year, Stuart, follow the lower formula a bit closer. But what do you reckon to Alex Albon?
Well, whatever happens, we're going to get the answer to what's fastest, a torpedo or a rocket. Yeah, so most of my knowledge of Albon is sort of secondhand, having not had my eye on Formula 2 that closely. But I am really interested to see. I'm glad he got a seat because there was a lot of talk of Albon. It didn't seem like he was going to slot into Formula 1 anywhere. And also very interesting, Kvyat. I hope Kvyat has a sort of Romain Grosjean-esque moment here. Where he got to go away for a couple of years and think about what he did and come back refreshed and able to build his career from scratch. Time will tell whether Toro Rosso let him do that, to be honest. Again, if I had to put money on it, I put money on Albon because he seems just to have that quality to him. People speak very highly of him and he's, did pretty successfully last year. And I feel like Red Bull have the weight behind him the way they don't behind Kvyat. I'm amazed Kvyat came back, to be honest, but clearly he has no shame at all.
I forgot that. I should just clarify, actually. I did forget that Norris got that podium in Yas Marina, didn't he, at Abu Dhabi? And Albon didn't have a great weekend. So Albon did finish third, 212.6 off Norris in second, but still, you get what I'm saying, in among two drivers that are massively hyped. But I'm going to ask you, Stuart, because I don't know if I asked you at the time, what did you make of it when Kvyat was announced? Did it feel to you as if Toro Rosso were going, we need a driver? We have very few options available to us at the moment. You'll have to do. And that sounds harsh because I really like Daniel Kvyat. I'm in the minority, but what was your take on all that when it happened?
Oh, and I should clarify, I do like Kvyat. I think he's a good driver, and I think he was massively let down by Toro Rosso. But yeah, very much. When they announced it, it just seemed like they didn't have a pool of drivers to pick from. And I think when we did a sort of mid-season stream last year, we were like, oh, let's talk about the driver market. We did speak a bit about how Toro Rosso didn't have a lot of eligible drivers in their junior pipeline to pick from. So I think this is to keep that seat warm. If he does well, then good for him, and that will give Toro Rosso another option for next year. But they needed someone to put in that seat, and they had him in their phone book.
Yeah. I've got 2 points, I guess, I want to make. I'm going to come to probably both of you on both points, to be fair. First up, Jonty. It does feel like this is a case of whoever comes out on top in this battle will partner Dan Ticktum next year, which, by the way, based on his attitude and how poor he's been in the Asian series, where he was apparently going to cruise it and get lots of super license points, would be a huge mistake. So it's kind of got that added dynamic to it, hasn't it? That we're in a situation where probably both of these know they're in there for the short term, with the victor getting to keep maybe a longer term seat.
It does feel that way. I mean, you mentioned in Ticktum, what I'd say is him coming into F1 would be the worst thing since Ricardo Rossi. It does have that feeling that you both mentioned where Toro Rosso just had no one to pick from. So it was like, should we go and say we're sorry to Kvyat and be really, really nice about it? Because he was treated very terribly. But
well, they dropped both of them, didn't they, from the programme because they weren't good enough, and then basically turned around and said, oh God, we've got no drivers, and came out and released 2 press releases that were basically saying the same thing, just reworded like, yeah, no, but he's more mature now, and he's a much quicker guy, and he's learnt a lot, and they both basically got the same treatment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Red Bull really need to look for some newer drivers for their programme. To drop the bad ones that they've got and to look to the future, because these guys, if they do well this year, they're not going to stick around at Toro Rosso because there will be other seats opening up as the years go on.
What if they both deliver? What the Toro Rosso and Red Bull do then, if they both come out and deliver? It's a really exciting one. But the other question I wanted to ask, and I'll put this to Stuart first, and if you want to say something after Jonty, absolutely feel free, but they're both in a very difficult position anyway. They've got to fight for this potentially seat to team up with Dan Ticktum in the future. But what's even tougher for them is the team have already come out and said, we will sacrifice our season if we need to help Red Bull. So they're already going to this season possibly knowing that they're going to be starting from the back of the grid with a crap ton of penalties left, right and centre to try and get development through for the A team, if you like.
Yes, and I think what they really need to do is they need to publicly take that on the chin and be like, we are at a disadvantage this year because we're working with Red Bull to develop that Honda engine, so we are often going to be starting at the back, but we're going to do the very best we can to move up the grid and score the points we can. And as they can't won't have the ability to show themselves through points necessarily as often as they would like, I think they need to very publicly have this dialogue with the media about what they are actually doing. And I think that goes a long way. When you start hearing drivers say, we're in this position, but we're doing this, and we're feeling very positive about it, and we're building up, and they have a full understanding of where they sit within that program, I think that will go a long way to making them appear more positive.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Jonty, to that?
It does make you wonder if there's been something added into their deals. They obviously must have had the knowledge that Toro Rosso would be potentially sacrificing their results for the development of the Honda engine. So maybe they said, yeah, we'll go along with that, but you've got to sign us for 2 years.
Okay.
Because what driver would sign up to a 1-year deal knowing that the team's efforts for another team would be getting him nothing?
I like that. Just having a moment to think about it. Yeah, I really do like that. But I think we're pretty much done on the teammate battles here. All we do know is we're going to have a brilliant season. I'm going to take that super chat. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'll answer that in just a moment when we get to Q&A. And there's a couple of great comments coming through. I'm going to answer this one from Will Hamad, though. First, he says, is Tictum good? I have no idea what he's like. Tictum is a very fast driver. He is incredibly quick. The problem is his attitude stinks. And I don't mean his attitude stinks in the way that often drivers' attitudes do stink because they've got a lot of ego there and all of that, and they're trying to be the best and blah, 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 blah. He's just a bit of a dick at times, quite frankly, is the only way to put it. But he's incredibly quick, and if they can sort his attitude out, he could do very well. We're not talking world champion material, but he could do very well. So hopefully he will grow up. A couple of things before we get to Q&A though. First up, don't forget to check out blackwolfnation.com. They are the channel's sponsors or partners, I think is probably the better way to put it. They've been with us now for quite a while and their support is absolutely awesome as always. There is a link in the description to check out their website, and if you use the code F1word at checkout, you can grab yourself an extra 15% off, so make sure to head on over. If nothing else, just to go and check out and see if there's anything there that you like. The other thing I want to do, which is very odd for this channel, because I'm just a bit weird today, and why not? Congratulations to the FE or F1/E reviews, Formula Dan reviews channel, Dan basically, for hitting 4K subs today. Absolutely fantastic, completely deserved, and could not happen to a nicer guy. He's brilliant. One of, along with Jonty and Stuart, one of the best people I've ever worked with. He's absolutely fantastic. Great lad as well, and totally deserves that. So I've got to say massive congratulations to him, which is why he's got his own little slide and a picture of Romain Grosjean on there as well. And I'm going to be working with him a lot more in the coming weeks. There is a link in the description some of you might have spotted, and somebody's already put the hashtag in the chat already for the Formula E word. If you are interested, you can hit that link there and you can subscribe to the channel. Content will be uploaded and we'll be streaming from there very, very soon. And breathe. Should we take some questions? I think that's probably a very good idea. But yeah, I don't know if you two want to say congratulations to Dan or anything. I'm just hogging the limelight there.
No, seriously, well done, Dan. That's totally deserved because he puts in a lot of effort, certainly with the Formula E content. And there's not that many other people covering it to the detail that he is. So it can only grow even more from there.
Yes, very much. Just the first 4,000 subs. So I see this growing a long way for Dan. So nice one, Dan. I'll see you when you are a massive.
Yeah, absolutely. When he's a massive channel and finally shakes his Grosjean fanboyism.
I think that's what's holding him back, to be honest.
Yeah, if he drops that, he'll get even further. Maybe it's all Grosjean fans that subscribe to. I'd be surprised if there were 4,000, to be perfectly honest. That may seem harsh, but I did get a super chat just a moment ago. Thank you very much to the Carthot. I think I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm so sorry. It says, what do you think will happen to Bottas if he doesn't perform? And do you think Ferrari will make Leclerc a second driver or see how he goes for 2019? Thank you very much for that donation again. I think we said earlier, didn't we? Bottas has got to deliver this year. There's nowhere to hide is one way to put it, but also there's just no excuses this year. There can't be all this, it's only his first year at Mercedes, or, yes, he was really unlucky. He's got to smash it this year, Jonty. And I don't think the decision's been made, but I don't think the decision's a million miles away. I don't know what you think, but a lot of people seem to think that Ocon's already got that seat.
A lot of people do think that, and there's no argument that Bottas has got to deliver. This is the biggest test he's ever had. With all the negative things that have happened to him, he's really, really got to deliver. And if he does, that will put him on a level where he'll be fighting for titles. And if he doesn't, I've got a horrible feeling he'll be gone forever.
Ooh. See, I think I don't know about forever. I think if we were talking earlier, weren't we, about Grosjean and Magnussen, and if one of those doesn't deliver and they decide to get rid of one of them and Bottas becomes available, I think he could sit quite nicely at a Haas. I think he could sit somewhere like that in the midfield, like he was at Williams, and probably lead that team very well.
Yeah, he definitely could, but would those teams want to go for someone who's had the shot and failed at it, as opposed to someone
Yeah.
who's been at the top, won it, and then wants to retire out slowly, like Kimi going back to Sauber?
I think
Yeah.
Bottas comes with the experience of being in a world championship team alongside Lewis Hamilton that is quite valuable if you're someone maybe like Haas or whatever Force India become. So he does carry that with him at least.
Dan's just turned up in chat. I hope you didn't miss my really lovely message to you, mate, because I'll be absolutely fuming and I'll take it away. I'm joking, of course. The other part of that question, I'll come to you for this one, Stuart. Do you think Ferrari will make Leclerc a number 2 driver in 2019? I don't think they will. I think they'll be free to race.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's in their benefit as well to let them be free to race as long as they don't run into each other, which I can't see that happening too regularly. Right? They're not gone full Force India, but I think they're looking to Leclerc for a kind of long term front running Ferrari driver, and they need to give him the experience of being able to race wheel to wheel wherever he can. You would hope.
Ben McCarthy says, favourite F1 corner of all time. Mine was Bridge at Silverstone. I loved Bridge at Silverstone. I really did. Now they've turned it into a little walkway to the fan zone, which is such a waste because that was such a good corner. Favourite corner, I would be... I don't want to say it because I just know what's going to happen. I would probably say Eau Rouge. Here goes chat. Dead meme. But anyway, I would probably say Eau Rouge. I don't know about you, Jonty.
I've got to agree on Bridge. Bridge was amazing. The speed they turned into there was something spectacular to behold. Can I cheat and go with a corner that has only been used once? Because I'm going to say the Craner Curves at Donington.
Dan says that's Radion idiot. Thanks, mate. What about you, Stu? Have you got a favourite corner?
I had a minute to think about this, and I still couldn't come up with anything. But I do want to pay homage to Turn 8 at Istanbul, which kind of opened up this new flavour of corner that you may think is a bit overdone, maybe, but we see with a lot of new tracks they have this long, multiple apex, very fast corner that does add a lot of flavour to tracks, and I think Tilke particularly has used it quite well in different scenarios. So I think Turn 8 Istanbul did some wonderful things for tracks going forward.
Kovic and Red G both agree with you on that one. Couple of people saying 130R definitely worth a shout. Ascari, obviously the Parabolica at Monza. A Shadow fan just said there that's got to get a shout. I'm trying to think of something a bit more. One of the modern circuits, if there's something on there that I quite like.
Yeah, you see, it is quite tricky. I actually do really like Turn 1 at Kota.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
The way it comes up so steep on that hill, they can brake really late and you get some good wheel-to-wheel stuff there.
That first sector is pretty much epic, isn't it? Around Kota.
Yeah, because you get that Turn 1 and then the copy of Maggotts Beckett's, which is really cool just to watch them. You don't get that much side-by-side through the 2, 3 and 4, but it's just awesome to watch.
Oh, good shout from Umar on cars in chat. Turn 3 at Sochi. Yes, that is a hell of a corner to watch cars round. I'm going to put Stowe in there as well. But I don't know if that's because the corner's great or because it's one of the iconic corners.
I thought you'd hate Stowe because it broke your hero.
It did. It ruined his championship that year. He would have won the title in '99. Yes, I went there.
No, Irvine would have beat him.
Not a chance, Irvine. If Irvine could get that close to the title, it's a bit like Damon Hill in '94. I've always maintained if Damon Hill can get that close to the title, had Senna not been killed at Imola, he would have won the title. And if Irvine can get that close to the title, Schumacher would have won it. So, but let's not get into that one. I'm going to go to Schumacher though. Mick Schumacher. I don't know, nostalgia pumping through the veins, actually, I think, Stuart. What an incredible story. He's in the Ferrari Driver Academy now, and it looks like there could well be a route to Formula One for him. I don't know what I'd do if he ended up in a Ferrari.
It's very interesting. I really hope, I kind of like Norris, I hope the hype doesn't precede him. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. more so than we saw with the likes of Bruno Senna, despite how excited we were to have that name back in Formula One. And I hope the Ferrari Academy is able to develop him. I mean, I'm a big, you'll probably hear me saying this again and again and again over the years, but I'm a big fan of developing people properly and not in the kind of Red Bull way of just shouting at them if they get it wrong, which can be in a bit of Ferrari's blood. But with their junior team, it would be really interesting to see how he develops. I would absolutely love it if he was able to enter into Formula One and reach the point where he was fighting for titles with that name. That would be fascinating to see.
Oh, I don't know what I'd do. What's your take on it all, Jonty? It's a lot of nostalgia there, but he deserves a lot of credit. He was fantastic in that second half of the Euro F3 season.
Yeah, it really was. That win at Spa did wonders for his confidence. And it's going to be very interesting watching him in Formula 2. I can't wait to see what he's capable of there. And him joining Ferrari Drivers Academy, it can only be good for him. But as Stuart says, as long as they allow him to develop properly instead of rushing him through.
If he does a couple of years in F2, Kimi retires. There's a seat at Sauber there, isn't there?
Well, you see, this is where a possible problem comes in. Because if he's really, really, really good, keeps up the performances that he did in F3, he can't have a couple of years in F2.
That's a good point, yes. So what we need is for him to finish second in the championship, be really good, but just not quite good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Because if he goes out and wins it in his first year, he can't race it again.
Oh, so I always forget about that. Thinking back through, actually, we've lost quite a few drivers who have sort of gone on and done really well in F2, and then it's all about timing in Formula 1 with so few seats available, isn't it? So,
just look at people like Pantano, Valsecchi.
Yeah, but Valsecchi's an awesome commentator. I'd rather he was doing that than racing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're not sad that we've got him commentating now. Sam Bird, another one in chat, just mentioned, yes, he didn't take the title, but he was super good there. There was just no openings in F1 at the time.
I suppose it's just going to go back to the question. Sorry, Stuart. It's going to go back to the question, isn't it? We need more teams. It's as simple as that.
So, yeah, this is very, very fine balance here where you need somewhere for these strong junior drivers to go. But Formula One is also this baptism of fire. And if you don't balance that right, if you don't bring them in at the right time, you can lose some big, big talents. Not necessarily that Formula One is the only thing they can do with that talent, but it is their dream for a lot of these drivers. And you do need to kind of bring them in, nurture them, develop them at the right pace in the right teams.
Jack Monaghan makes a fantastic point in chat. Says, not to mention, Mick Schumacher is fighting Callum Ilott and Giuliano Alesi this year. They're both Ferrari Academy drivers as well, aren't they? So we've got this situation. We've got 3 Academy drivers from Ferrari in the same series, scrapping it out for possibly an F2 title if it all goes their way. Ooh.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Oh, forget F1. Let's all watch F2. No, don't. No.
Third channel.
Don't. Oh, for God's sake. What have I done? Another one from the car thought, thank you very much for your donation again. Really appreciate that one, mate. It says, not many people are talking about Gasly. How do you think his season will go? Being with someone like Max, how do you think Norris will do with Sainz? We've kind of covered that earlier when we were going through the teammate battles, and I think we're kind of all agreed that Gasly is going to be a lot closer. Hey, picture timing, nice one. Gasly is going to be a lot closer to Verstappen than a lot of people seem to think, but I think we're all agreed Verstappen will come out on top. As for Norris and Sainz, I just couldn't call that. I can't, because I think there's just so many question marks around McLaren at the moment. I'm not convinced they're ever going to be able to deliver a car that's capable of doing much more than lingering in the midfield somewhere until maybe they get rid of Zach Brown, because I don't think he can lead that team. I really hope I come back to this stream in a year's time and I am made to look an absolute idiot with that statement and that McLaren actually surprise us all, but I just don't think Zach Brown can lead that team. And I'll let either of you come in after that one because I'm just being controversial now.
There's nothing controversial there. Zach Brown is utterly useless as a team principal.
Yeah, I'm just going to very quickly and quietly say I have not been won over by Zach Brown yet.
Yet. I like that. You never know. You never know. They might deliver, but I just can't see it this year. Let's have a look through chat break. We've got to take a couple more. I don't mind overrunning a little bit today. What's overrunning, though, for us? We talked about this before the stream, weren't we, Jonty? Trying to redefine what an F1 word hour is, because it's not 60 minutes.
Yeah, an F1 word hour is any amount of minutes apart from 60.
It's true. I try my best, but then we get chatting and I can't help it. So I was going to say there's a couple more questions to take before we end the stream. I'm sure there's something I wanted to bring up. But I can't remember what it was now. I'm sure. Yeah, probably. I ate way too much at lunch, which is probably no surprise. Any guesses for who will form the 2019 Renault Sport Academy lineup next week? I have no idea, Jack, to be honest. I saw something on Twitter earlier with a few names on there, but I'm trying to think. Renault Academy, last graduate from the Renault Academy to make it to F1. It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm sure somebody in chat's going to turn around and say something in a minute and we'll go, oh, no, it hasn't. But I can't think.
Yeah, I'm out of the loop on this as well.
Someone just brought it up in chat. Are they still running Jack Aitken? He really dropped off last year.
I think they will do. I'd be surprised if they don't, because yes, he dropped off, but I think he was good enough for the most part of the season to warrant a bit longer. Yeah, F1 stroke E reviews. I can't wait to change this channel name. I hate saying stroke or slash. Says Grosjean question mark. Was he part of the Renault Academy? Because if he was, that's not a great indictment for it, is it? Really? It's not a great selling point. Yeah, we gave you Grosjean. No, thanks.
He could well have been.
He did jump into that Lotus, didn't he? Which was Lotus Renault.
He started in Lotus, didn't he?
Yeah.
He replaced PK?
Or Petrov.
Either way, Petrov. We're going back a long way for that.
Yeah. 1927. Sean, Jonty or Stuart, how old is Murray Walker, says the F1 report. I think is he in his 90s now?
No, I've just checked. It's 95.
Wow. And he looks better than me.
1923.
He looks better than me.
Can confirm.
Rude. Yeah. Wow. Nation Goring asking 1000th GP. That's in China, and as Dan will confirm, the 1000th Grand Prix doesn't happen all that often.
That was class.
Yeah. Love your channel. How do you think Honda will do? Thank you very much again for that contribution, mate. Really appreciate that. I think Honda will surprise a few this year, if I'm being honest, Stuart. I don't think they're going to challenge for the title. I'm not as confident that they're going to challenge for the title as Helmut Marko is, for example, but I think they'll surprise a few. Might take a few races to get up to speed. If they've got any reliability problems or performance issues, they now know they've got a second team in Toro Rosso that they can just throw all sorts of, I don't know, parts at and give them loads of penalties and try and sort their problems out. But I think they'll do all right. I think they'll do okay. It's the best way I can put it, because we're not going to know till winter testing.
I know, and even winter testing might flatter to deceive, because you can easily use winter testing to just burn through all your engines to just nail exactly the sweet spot, or at least try to. Yeah, I think they'll do better than they have been. I think they're on a very, very, very steady curve of improvement. I would be delighted if they were as good as Red Bull are hyping them up to be, but at least they've got that second team now, which they've desperately... They should have had since the beginning. They should have had more than one team. They can't even, they can't benchmark against one another in this. So I feel the prevailing school of thought is that we are expecting Red Bull to still be the third best team. So everyone's expecting Honda to at least be somewhat competitive.
Well, they're aiming to match Renault by the time they get to Australia. That's all they need to do, is be within a tenth of a second of Renault, and Red Bull should still be third. All they need to do. It's that easy to build an F1 engine, everybody. That's all they need to do.
yeah, if they do that, they'll be smiling, and I'd like to hope that Red Bull are more patient with them than they were with Renault. At least they're a works team now.
Yeah. Yeah, they've at least got the focus now and they've got everything behind them. But a couple more questions. Ben McCarthy, last time you cried whilst watching F1, I nearly did in Abu Dhabi watching Hamilton, Vettel and Alonso driving back to the grid. But genuinely, and I don't care how sad this makes me sound and how pathetic it makes me sound, I'm not going to lie, I shed a tear when Kimi won in the US. Jonty.
Actually, officially, it would be several months after the incident of 2014. So it wasn't even during a race. 2015. The Bianchi.
Yeah. Stuart, if you've ever, you may not have.
Oh no, see, I hardly ever cry at real life things, but anything that happens on TV, I'm like, that doesn't take much at all to get me going. And it was definitely the Champions 3-car parade in Abu Dhabi. It was that was a lovely moment. It definitely brought a tear to my cheek.
Yeah, it was a moment, wasn't it? I can't help it though with the Raikkonen thing. I think we've been waiting so long, and he's had such a raw deal in the past, and yeah, I think he just showed that he's still got it. And it was a nice way to sign off as well before disappearing to Sauber, where he could absolutely surprise us all next season. I think we're all expecting him to do quite well, but yeah, Abu Dhabi was incredible. We need more of that. That's what Formula One should be about as well. I know they're all rivals, but that was just fantastic to see. I did see a really good question I wanted to end on. Not necessarily, well, yeah, a good question. A couple of people have been asking, and I'm going to say the names, and then I'm going to get criticised for butchering them. But everything that happened at Ferrari with Arrivabene and Binotto, because I don't think we did a stream to cover that, as far as I remember. So I suppose we ought to give it a couple of minutes just to discuss it very quickly, Jonty. What's your take on all that? I can't help but feel that although there were definitely issues with Arrivabene, I think it was quite harsh to drop him when they did.
A little bit, yeah. But I'm more concerned that it's a mistake by Ferrari. Binotto is, Ferrari through and through. He's been there for a long time and has been instrumental in their turnaround in the last 2 years as technical director. Why change that? Why make him do something else? You're going to detract from the constantly good work he's been putting out. Don't stop him doing that when he's clearly doing it right. That, the classic line of, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
What do you reckon about it all, Stuart?
Again, it all happened very, very strangely, and maybe we'll get the full story as to what was going on behind the scenes there. I think the impression I hear from the way people talk about Arrivabene was his style of leadership was quite similar to old Enzo Ferrari in that kind of authoritarian, verging, if not going into bullying territory, where he would just sort of like by force of presence would attempt to change the fortune of the team, which I'm not sure how well that ever worked, but definitely now that's not the agreed way of like building a team forwards. And very similar to how I talk about supporting and mentoring and developing drivers. I think that's the attitude you need to take at leading a team. Good leadership is about fostering good practice and not scaring everyone into submission, which I think is the kind of style we were hearing that Arrivabene was bringing to that team. So potentially that's why they were looking for change, and then they saw the good work Binotto was doing, whereas even though he is technical director, a lot of that comes from leadership skills, and I think if he can transfer that to the higher position, then he could do well. But Ferrari, above all, definitely needs some stability, because they have been railing through management quite quickly since the Jean Todt era ended.
I said that in a video that I did just after the news, or the day after the news came out, that you look at Mercedes, they're all pretty. I think Paddy Lowe is about the only one really top end that's left in recent years. They might be missing somebody, but the majority of their top-end management stay in position, and that's given them security, it's given them stability, and in turn that has rolled on to help build and keep a very good car going and keep two drivers relatively happy and competitive. So they've got to take a leaf out of Mercedes' book. I'm sure Ferrari fans will hate me saying that, but they're going to have to. They can't be chopping and changing management every 3 or 4 years, and that's coming from a Man United fan. That's how hypocritical that line is. But you can't be chopping and changing management like that. There's got to be some form of consistency. I worry for Ferrari in a way because they can't afford another period of transition because Binotto's come in. They can't go, yeah, we're going to have to take a year or two now to let Binotto settle in. They can't do that. They haven't got the time. He has got to hit the ground running. The only thing I would say for him on his side is he's been there since 95, I think, Jonty, since 1995-ish, somewhere around there. So he knows the team pretty much inside out, and that could help him out massively.
Yeah, it absolutely. Everyone that will be working underneath him within the team will know and respect him because he's been there so long and has achieved so much. As I said earlier, I just worry that they're going to be ruining all the good work they've been doing recently. It really is a big concern. And another point, sorry if I butcher your name, but I think it's Raoul Vaid, mentioned that Binotto's not a very political sort of front of stage kind of person. And you always need someone like that for dealing with the media, keeping things at bay. And that could well distract him. That's not his kind of thing. Arriva Bene was absolutely amazing at that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. I just hope they're all right. I hope they're all right. Not in any kind of fanboy thing or anything like that, but for our own sakes as Formula One fans, if they decide, no, we're going to take a couple of years to transition, you've just got 2 more years of Mercedes dominance potentially, and that's just going to be... Mercedes deserve everything. Everything they've won, they deserve. They have worked their backsides off to get there, so I'm not going to take anything away from them. But from a neutral perspective, we need 2, 3, 4 teams up there fighting for race wins and world championships. And if you take Ferrari out of that, we've got problems. So, yes, we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stream is overrunning, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to make that one point I've made before as well, that there's so much pressure on Ferrari for their legacy. As I said before, this year is their last chance at a title. Otherwise, it's the first decade ever where they haven't won something.
Ooh, that's a good stat. I do like that stat. But yeah, like I say, I was just going to say the stream is overrunning, but there's just been so much. It's supposed to be the winter, but this last couple of weeks in Formula One, there has just been so much news floating around that I could probably I could probably bring back F1 dailies. The way it's been going, maybe we're going a bit far, but there's just been that much news floating around. It's just keeping the channel going around quite nicely. So lots easily can keep these streams going, no problem whatsoever, and lots of content coming up next week as well. Which I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth into. Yeah.
People give Hamilton Fan 89 just said, what about Rob Smedley going back there? I'd love to see that.
Got to take Felipe with him, though. He's got Felipe, baby, stay cool. Absolutely brilliant. But yes, we're gonna end it there. Definitely. Thank you very much, Stuart, for coming along and joining us. I said it to Dan on Tuesday. I'd seen your face, but having met you in person, it seems quite weird talking to you now. In a good way, I guess.
Yeah, everything has changed now.
Did he have pants on?
No, he did not. No, he did. He came fully clothed. I was surprised.
Yeah, I wore... I mean, it was cold. I had layers and everything. I was so far from being undressed. It was absurd.
It was brilliant. But yeah, thank you very much for coming along for this one. Hopefully get you on again very, very soon.
That'd be great. I'll be glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
No worries, thank you. And as always, Jonty, thank you very much for coming along. It's been a while. Hopefully we're back now to every Sunday, all being well now that Autosport's, I sound awful, out of the way, but you know what I mean. And we're not long now, mate. I think, 3 weeks till car launches, 4 till testing. Getting exciting.
Yeah, exactly. I've already got that week off. So I can sit here and argue with people on Twitter, which is what launch week is all about.
Absolutely. Or Sean can go live every day and bring Jonty in. I'm joking. But yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, mate. It's been a pleasure as always. And I will probably talk to you both very, very shortly.
Absolutely. Thanks again. See you, folks.
Ta-ra.
Lovely. Thank you very much to Jonty and to Stuart for that one. Loads coming up. Raheem says, can I get a shout out? Of course you can, mate. Raheem Phillips with a shout out, but I'm going to come away from chat now because I do need to end the stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. There is your schedule next week. Will be uploads Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. UK time. And then 11 a.m. On Saturday as well. And we'll hopefully, all being well, I think we should be live next Sunday again at 6 p.m. UK time. Do not forget, if you were a fan of the Formula E content that we tried out on the channel in December, make sure that you follow the link in the description down below to subscribe to the FE word. Yes, I'm making more work for myself because I'm absolutely insane, but it seems like the easiest way to keep everybody happy and for me to still be able to cover that sport. So make sure you head on over there if you're an FE fan. I will be back, as it says there, on Tuesday at 4 p.m. with the next video. But in the meantime, you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course the Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.